I'm Hava, and I am a sexaholic. About a month and a half ago, I was going through yet another phase where I was wanting to quit Sexaholics Anonymous, and I sensed it was clear that my higher power wanted me here, but I didn't really want to be. And it was at a time when the 2, sometimes 3 other women at my meeting had left, and I was the only woman. And I remember leaving the Sunday meeting and kind of in a huff and going home. I'm not coming back. And I got a message on my machine from Saras who said, "Would you be a speaker at this event today, Anna?" So I thought, oh, very funny, higher power. You're asking me I'm in doubt, and you're asking me to make a commitment at least for the next month and a half. So, and actually, she had said, asked me to speak on Tradition 1, which I came here today thinking I was going to speak on, but which is our common welfare should come first. Personal recovery depends upon SA unity, and what I was thinking of speaking about was women and men in SA. And I remember coming into SA, and one of my first impressions was that there weren't many women. And I was so embarrassed that I mean, especially about the big M word, to talk about masturbation. I still have to look at the ceiling when I had to look at the floor constantly, and I always wanted to break out into this nervous sort of adolescent giggle. And it was very uncomfortable. I realized at some point that I have very, very little self-esteem around men. And when the other women left, I was having a hard time even speaking at a meeting. So I was thinking, what am I even coming here for? And my assumption was that you didn't want me here, and that if I wasn't this sore thumb in the meeting, you'd really be getting down to business and really be sharing from the heart. And it was just because I was there. And of course, I am the problem, and I felt sort of like a donut in an OA meeting or something, which is probably pretty arrogant to feel like that I am such a big deal. But anyway, when I decided to talk about unity, I started to pray about this, and this last month and a half, there's just been one gentle miracle after another, so that a year ago, I would have wanted this panel to be women only, and now I was sort of concerned because I heard it might be women only, and it's like, no, I didn't want that. And one of the first miracles was that I was upset because somebody said something that I thought was disparaging to women and me. And there's just all these resentments, and in a year and almost a year and a half of SA, I think like one person once said something probably disparaging about prostitutes. I'm an ex-prostitute, and it's like, okay, I'm not coming back here. Why, So someone asked me if I'd secretary the business meeting in a week, and I said, well, I don't know if I'm even going to come. I just don't know. And this is one man that I've started to have some degree of communication with, and he said, well, I really hope you come back. You make a valuable contribution here. And that was amazing to me, because I thought I wasn't wanted, because that's my cargo that I bring, and somebody else, and God had men start to talk to me, and someone else a few weeks later said, must be hard being the only woman at this meeting. I said, yeah, sometimes I haven't wanted to be here, and he said, well, I hope you stay because you really make a valuable contribution here. I also, and after that, I started to realize. I mean, I'd leave the meeting and I'd have all these these little intuitions you get. I assume men get intuitions too. That women's intuition is probably not true, but that I realized that I say this. I hope I prayed about this and hope that I'm saying this in the spirit of recovery and reconciliation. Is that I have had hatred towards men, and it's what I learned from my mother, from my grandmother, all of whom were prostitutes. And what I realized after one meeting was that it was just fear, and I didn't even know any men. I mean, my therapist is the first man I've ever sat in a room and talked with a man. I mean, that wasn't a sexual relationship. So pardon me, but I make amends for 41 years of resentment based on basically fear. And it became really hopeful and exciting to me that I could learn to have maybe friendships, or have relationships with men that were sober, and to learn that in this fellowship. And I also had to. God just kept giving me these insights, and I recognized that. I hate to admit this, but I would have all these resentments, like hearing men act out with prostitutes and stuff about molesting youngsters. And it occurred to me one day, it just got real clear, is that I didn't want to look at this because it was me, and it was easy for me to say that's men who do that stuff. And, for example, when I was a prostitute in a particular house that I worked in, I don't know whether I chose this or not, but it is definitely part of my psyche now, or my makeup, is that I was responsible for initiating, not well men would bring their sons, 11, 12, whatever, to, be initiated into sex, and that was my, that's what I did, and I still have that inclination, that's one of my lust patterns. So when I was able to admit this, I could sit at a meeting, and when that discomfort arose, I would just remind myself that the person sitting in the next seat was a man, and he was just like me. And that I don't know whether I don't know whether men and women act out in different ways. I don't know. I just know that my lust, my disease is the same one that you have. And also, what I've been learning too is my relationship with God. I always, when I came across the God, that word, it was always Dad, basically, and who was a sadistic tyrant, and I once kind of jokingly, I realized, kind of joked that every amends that I have to make can be divided into two categories. I'm sorry I mistook you for my mother, and I'm sorry I mistook you for my father. It's like, so, I mean, it's like, this is old news, but I've got to stop, seeing all you as Dad, and, or tricks, or, and that hostility, and I realized that my relationship with God wasn't going to heal. It wasn't going to be a matter of me changing the gender of my higher power, which is also valid, but calling God goddess or whatever. It was a matter of me healing my relationships with men, and that that was necessary for me to do this work, for me to heal my relationship with God, and which is healing my relationship with myself. Because I can't hate you all without hating me. But then the other just mostly amazing thing that's happened in this last month and a half is that well, I shared at a meeting. I have this really lousy work record, being a prostitute, and I put sales, on like application stuff, but it's like I just don't have much to say at an interview, and and I went, and I've been out on disability, and I went for a long time, and I went to an employment agency, and something said, just be real, and I said, I've been a secretary prostitute, and I don't want to do either, and this woman had a job listing for ex-prostitutes that just came in, and I shared this about this meeting, about this process of applying, and I got so much, what I got was love, And I really felt rooted for. It's like everybody in that room was supporting me. When I didn't get the job because they wanted someone with a degree, and that's not what my degree lies in, believe me. I got support then too, and it's just this amazing, incredible thing for and I realized that it maybe doesn't. It's not the effusive kind where someone comes and hugs you, and I'm really glad. That's one thing I really like, that in SA we don't hug, because I couldn't deal with that, But I guess what I'm saying is I'm beginning to feel like loved by y'all, and I hope to return the favor soberly. And and just in every little way, it's like God, week after week, is saying, no, you were wrong, Hava. I thought, well, I just hate this because men don't share their feelings and it's really dry, and they're just mouthing platitudes about the steps, but not really sharing from the heart, blah, blah, blah. Well, if you've ever sat through a first step, you can't, it's not real honesty. But to sit through someone giving their first step and that degree of vulnerability, and somebody came up to me after a meeting last week and was like just almost in tears and just was like showing that to me, and so all I can say is, I didn't come to Sexaholics Anonymous eagerly. It's not where I would have chosen to be. Sitting in a room telling personal things to people who used to be my clients, so to speak. It's probably the most wonderful thing that's ever happened to me. So thanks.
Thanks, Hava.